Some fighters are dangerous, some fighters are dominant, but once in a generation a fighter appears who feels different, cold, silent, inevitable. When Alex Pereira walks into the octagon, it does not feel like a fight, it feels like an execution. From kickboxing world champion to two-division UFC champion, knocking out legends like Israel Adesanya and Jiri Prochazka. The question is no longer whether he is elite. The question is Alex Pereira the scariest human in UFC history? Alex Pereira was born into struggle. Sao Paulo, 1987, concrete, chaos, and a family fighting to stay afloat. No silver spoon, no easy path. The streets taught survival. Fists spoke louder than words. In this world, a boy learned to keep his face blank and his heart armored. But beneath the silence, something older stirred. Pereira's mother carried the blood of the Pataxo, an indigenous people from Bahia, keepers of ritual and warrior tradition. They called him Poatan. In Tupi-Guarani, it means hand of stone, not a nickname, a warning, a prophecy. Before the world saw knockouts, before the UFC lights, the name was already a legend among those who understood its weight. Yet power alone wasn't enough. Pereira fell hard into alcoholism, a 4-year spiral with no bottom, training by day and drinking by night. He won his first national kickboxing title still under the haze. Then, at 26, he quit cold. No rehab, no speeches, just a choice. Fight for something real or disappear. He chose the fight. Years later, after claiming UFC gold, Pereira returned to the Pataxo reservation. Face painted, belt in hand, he stood before tribal elders, the champion among his own. He spoke of happiness, of community, of a strength that money can't buy. For Poatan, survival became redemption, and redemption became myth. Glory. The word alone sent a chill through the world of kickboxing. In that ring, Alex Pereira was not a man, he was a sentence waiting to be carried out. Opponents studied his tape and saw the same thing. Violence delivered with no warning, no mercy, no hint of doubt. Out of 13 fights in Glory, Pereira finished 11, 9 of those by knockout. An 82% KO rate, almost unheard of at the elite level. Most men in his division fought to win. Pereira fought to erase. They talked about the left hook like it was a curse. Coaches whispered about it in locker rooms. Fighters flinched at the thought of it finding their jaw. It wasn't just power, it was inevitability. The crowd knew. The opponents knew. Sometimes, you could see it in their eyes before the bell even rang. Then came Israel Adesanya, undefeated, untouched. They called him the next big thing. Pereira didn't care. In Glory 46, one feint, one shift of weight, and then the left hook detonated. Adesanya's body folded. The crowd went silent. The referee stepped in, but it was already over. That night, the myth was no longer just a story. It was a warning, broadcast in real time. Pereira didn't celebrate. He barely smiled. Another body, another prophecy fulfilled. Glory coaches called him the most dangerous striker they'd ever seen. Opponents stopped talking trash and started talking survival. The aura was born, not just of knockouts, but of fear. In Glory, Pereira didn't chase greatness. He hunted it, and everyone else ran. 4 fights. That is all it took. Alex Pereira entered the UFC middleweight division and tore through it like a storm with no warning. No warm-up, no slow climb, just bodies left behind. His first target, Andreas Michailidis. 1 flying knee, 1 collapse. Then Bruno Silva, then Sean Strickland. Each man walked in confident. Each man left with his lights out or his will broken. But the real test waited under the brightest lights. Israel Adesanya, the undefeated king, the man Pereira had already haunted in another ring. The UFC handed Pereira a title shot after just 4 MMA bouts. Some called it hype, some called it madness. But the truth was simpler. Fear sells, and nobody sold it like Poatan. Behind the scenes, Glover Teixeira watched every move. The old champion became the architect, sharpening Pereira's edges, drilling him in silence and violence. Grappling, breath control, visualization, rituals designed to forge a weapon, not just a fighter. Teixeira's fingerprints were everywhere. Under his guidance, Pereira's numbers jumped. Punch force up 12%, strike accuracy climbing past 79%. But numbers cannot measure what happened in the cage that night. Adesanya circled, measured, waited. Pereira barely blinked. Fifth round, one mistake, one left hook. The kinetic chain, ground, hip, shoulder, hand, fired in under 0.03 of a second. That is faster than a blink, faster than a thought. Adesanya's head snapped back. The crowd fell silent. The ref stepped in. Pereira did not celebrate. He just stared. Middleweight champion. 4 fights, 1 execution. The myth was now reality. The rest of the division felt it. The era of inevitability had begun. 13 seconds. That is all it took. Jiří Procházka, unpredictable, wild, a man who made chaos his home, stood across from Pereira at light heavyweight. Bigger men, heavier hands. But the moment the cage door shut, none of that mattered. Pereira did not blink. He did not speak. He just waited. The bell rang. Procházka stepped forward, loose and dangerous. Pereira measured, silent, coiled. Then a left hook landed. It hit with the same cold certainty as every division before. Procházka's eyes rolled back. His body hit the canvas. The crowd did not roar. They gasped. A champion, erased in less time than it takes to draw a breath. Commentators scrambled for words. How does a man carry that kind of power up 20 pounds? The answer, he does not carry it. He is it. Impact force, measured at over 10,200 newtons, was less than 3% below his middleweight mark. Barely a drop. No other striker has crossed divisions and kept their threat so intact. Not Johnson, not Ngannou. Pereira's force-to-mass ratio sits in the rarest air, punching with heavyweight numbers in a lighter frame. It is not just physics, it is inevitability. This was not a fluke. 4 knockouts in 5 light heavyweight fights. Average knockout distance, average time to finish, almost identical to his run at 185. The myth did not shrink under bigger lights or heavier bodies. It grew. 2-division champion. The aura, undiminished. The fear, universal. In that moment, the difference between weight classes became irrelevant. The question was never about size. It was about something colder, a presence that does not fade, no matter how big the man standing across from him. A stare that empties the room. No words, no smirk. Just the slow, ritual walk, face painted, eyes fixed ahead, hands loose at his sides. Opponents feel it in their bones before the first punch is thrown. Sports psychologists call it weaponized presence. There is a reason for the dread. In a 2022 study, fighters facing Pereira showed a 23% spike in cortisol, the body's stress hormone, compared to the average pre-fight surge. That is not nerves. That is a primal alarm. In interviews, some admit it. The silence, the ritual, the sense that they are not stepping into a contest but a sentence. Among fans, the numbers echo the fear. 68% in a recent poll named Pereira as the fighter they would least want to face. Not Ngannou, not Jones. The myth is not just felt, it is measured, and every ritual, every cold stare tightens the noose before the cage even locks. Fear has many faces in the UFC. Francis Ngannou, pure heavyweight terror, with an 85% knockout rate and fists like sledgehammers. Cain Velasquez, relentless and suffocating, a man who broke bodies and spirits with a 70% knockout ratio. But numbers alone do not tell the story. Pereira sits at 78%, 1 punch behind Ngannou, 1 breath ahead of Velasquez. Average fight time, Pereira finishes men in just over 3 minutes. Ngannou takes nearly 4 minutes. Velasquez drags it out even longer. The table is simple. 1 column for violence, 1 for speed, 1 for legacy. Pereira is not the biggest. He is not the loudest. But in the cold math of knockouts, he stands shoulder to shoulder with the most feared. The difference? When Pereira enters the cage, it is not just power, it is inevitability. The kind that makes even monsters hesitate. Not every monster is invincible. Behind the aura, cracks appear. Pereira's takedown defense sits at 62%. Good, not great. Against wrestlers with real pedigree, the ground can get slippery. In 2 UFC wins, the judges held the final word. No knockout, no erasure, just rounds of sweat and grind, where the hands of stone never found the button. Critics whisper it. What happens if a fight drags on? What happens when youth fades and the body slows? Grappling analysts point to the tape, moments where Pereira's hips stall, where a relentless wrestler could drown him in the deep water. The myth is sharp, but it isn't seamless. Every executioner has a weakness, every legend, a shadow. The question hangs, how long can fear alone keep the wolves at bay? He stands across from you, silent, unblinking, inevitable. Opponents feel it, crowds sense it. The sport itself bends around his presence. So, is Alex Pereira the scariest human in UFC history? Or are we witnessing something even bigger? Drop your answer below. Let the world know where you stand.